Welcome everybody. We will start because it's almost time. Yeah, I'll check who is missing in a moment. So welcome everybody. The first announcement to make is that we had a meeting yesterday, and the directors they were talking about the possibility of going back to campus possibly this semester. Still, it's not for sure, but they were really discussing the idea of doing that. I think would be nice, but it will not be very soon. It will be the soonest in the end of March, let's say. And yeah, it all depends a little bit what will happen in the coming weeks. But they were seriously considering it. Also because I don't know if you read the newspapers that Coahuila, the government-wise, is reopening a little bit. They want to see if students can go back to school. So let's see what happens, guys. I'm not saying we go back. Don't take this as a confirmation yet. I'm just saying that the discussions are open. There's meetings about this. So just to say that yeah, it might happen. We don't know um, for sure. We don't know for sure. Um, anyway, I would love to because I would really like to see you in real and not only on the screen. And I see there's only two people with the camera on, so I can only see Amelia and Jose Roel. So I sometimes I forget how you looked like. Hola Luna and Julieta and Vera Sofia. No, I do remember you, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Okay, guys, second announcement is tomorrow the guest speaker confirmed. So I was talking about it last week already that I was working on it. The person told me that it would be possible for tomorrow at 11. So normally you have your free hour at 11, but your class will be canceled of tomorrow. So both groups will join at 11, so you will not have your class at 12. So you just connect at 11 and at 12 you will have your free hour, okay? So it's just practically more easy for us because like that the guest speaker doesn't have to do the talk like 4 times, okay? Because also the students of multi from fourth semester will join this conversation because they're talking a lot about sustainability. And in fact, the guest speaker will be about this. I will send you by WhatsApp a little bit later today the invitation and introduction about this person. And she will talk a little bit about social businesses, about the importance of the environment, the importance of creating social businesses that takes care of the people and the environment, because really our health, because our course is called Health and Society, and very often our health is altered by the profession we do, not only because of the environment, because also because of society. And in fact, it's our economical system that destroys our environment, and as a consequence as well, this affects our health. And it's not only about that, but she will really talk about what kind of alternatives exist. How can we make businesses social? How could they fit in our current economical system? Anyway, she will tell you everything about it tomorrow because it fits a little bit in this course and also in the course of chemistry. And I don't think that she will be available next year. The students of fourth semester, they will also join this talk. Okay. And then the last announcement before we start our course is that don't forget that next week, Wednesday, we have our first partial. I hope your language exam went well. That was yesterday, right? Or the day before yesterday? No, it was yesterday, right? Yeah, because yesterday was, no,
On Monday,
on
yes.
Monday. Yeah, on Monday.
Monday,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
on the 8th. It was on the 8th. And now it's 10, so it was Monday. So I know you're impartial, but still, also on Friday, what we will do is the module test, okay? Usually, if you paid attention, you really don't have to study that much for it. It's just the questions like review activities and things that you already did. But the module test has to become before the first partial exam, so that you take it into account that on Friday we will do this. Okay? Any questions so far? No? Okay. So today our lesson will be about bones. In fact, more the histological part of bones. And I don't know, the first ones here, I was already a little bit playing with our setup. In the morning it went more or less okay, so let's see if it will work again now. So normally what we do, you don't have to do anything, guys. You just have to pay attention. I don't want to give you more work than you already have. Normally it's something that you do, not me. Second. And but now online, of course, it's not possible. And it's a practicum about bones. Okay. Um, so this is the practicum, how it usually looks like. Now I will do it instead of you. What I have, this is the document of the practicum, and we will go over it. Okay. So what I have basically is, you can have a look at this here. I change my camera in a second, so stop sharing. And I'm going to switch a little bit between the two things. Um, so there we go. What you're looking at is in fact a chicken bone, and this chicken bone it was cooked and it's floating in vinegar. Okay, it's a little bit smelly, so certain students, they sometimes complain like, it's not a nice practical because it's smelly, but it's not hazardous at all because it's just vinegar and like a chicken bone. Okay, and we're going to have a look at this chicken bone, because this chicken bone is in fact a nice representation of of a real bone. Okay, so if I get it out, then you can look at that. And I'm sure you have eaten chicken before. um, so we have to identify certain parts. Okay, if I share my screen here, you can see that it could be compared with a long bone of a human, let's say. And there is two parts. So if you look at this practicum, we will go over all the terms and I will show it on the bone. Okay, I will dissect it in a certain way and we will see all those terms because you have to know what it is. Okay, that's basically what we will do today. So here you have the chicken bone, and you see that the chicken bone has like this thicker ends and like the thinner in the middle. Okay, these thicker ends, we call that epiphysis. Okay, and the thinner part, we call that diaphysis. You can also see that in the practicum right here. um, that a bone is made like that. Okay, like you have the epiphysis, which are the bigger parts on the end, and the diaphysis, which is in the middle. Okay. Bone, in fact, it's very much alive, guys. Bones is not just a certain, like I said before, it's rock. It's something that doesn't live. It's just a very hard structure inside of us. No, bone is very, because bone, like you have seen in the functions, it's not only keeping our body posture, it's also a production site of our red blood cells. Okay, what you can see here on the top of the bone, it's cartilage. You already have seen that in the tissues. And then here you also have cartilage. You typically have cartilage because when two bones join, you need cartilage in between, because otherwise movement will be difficult. So in the practicum, they're asking us to make a longitudinal section of the bone. So I will do that. It's possible now because I put this on Sunday in vinegar. And why do you think I would have put it in vinegar?
Soften it.
Sorry?
To soften it.
Yeah, to soften it. What the vinegar does, in fact, the vinegar dissolves the minerals in the bone. So the bone is made of about almost 70% of minerals, which is calcium, magnesium, and other minerals, and it's 30% cells, a little bit less than 30% cells. So if you put it in vinegar, in fact, it becomes, yeah, you can see that. I cannot break it like that, but it becomes more bendable, just because those minerals, they end up in the fluids. You see, like in this vinegar, you see it's usually transparent, and now it's still a bit transparent, but it's more yellowish than it normally would be. So I hope I don't cut my fingers. Let's try to make a longitudinal section. In the morning it went fine. You see how smooth how smooth, it's not super smooth, but it goes away easier than if it would have not been put in vinegar before. I don't know if you can see it. It's still a bit hard because it's still bone, but the minerals are dissolved, and that makes it possible to split it into two. Okay, so if you would not put it in vinegar, this would definitely not be possible. Okay, so here I cut it open. This chicken has been cooked. Doesn't really matter. We can see the structures, and there is a difference between the edges because, in fact, bone has different kind of structures. And here in the diaphysis and the epiphysis, we have different type of bone. Okay, and to explain that, I made a drawing a little bit here. Um, in the other course, I already did it. So in the ends, in the epiphysis, okay, if you take this a P epiphysis. Okay, this is in fact spongy bone. See, okay, and in the diaphysis, which is here, we call this compact bone. And what's the difference, in fact, that the bone, what I draw here in the epiphysis, we call that spongy because it's organized in such a spider web Mayan way, okay? And this organization, this is what tra, we call that trabeculae, okay? Trabeculae, okay? Why is it trabeculae? Because those organization is in all directions, okay? And in the diaphysis, the organization, we call that different. We call that lacunae, okay? Okay, these are Latin terms. And these terms, they refer, in fact, to the organization of the cells and the mineralization of the bones, okay? You have this trabeculae, which is like this because it's in this part of the bone. And it has to be like that because the forces on the bone there, because it's inside the hip bone, it's in all kinds of directions. And here, where we have this lacunae in the middle, which is dense bone or compact bone, we have like lacunae, which is like half moons on top of each other. It becomes way more compacted. So you have different types of strength. In fact, here you have a very long longitudinal strength, and here you have a strength in different kind of directions. And that's important because if you look at the bone, especially the long bones, you would have spongy bone here on the top because the forces, they come from this side, from this side, from that side, because it's inside the hip bone. And the strength in the middle, it has to be like here because the force is always in the same direction. That's why the bones, if you break them, they usually break horizontally more easily. Do you understand that? Why there is a difference between spongy bone and compact bone? Just because the forces have to be a little bit different, okay? And you can see that. You can see that here in this bone. I think I hope there is enough light. At least you can see it here. Here you can see typically the dense bone or the compact bone, okay? And then here on the edges, you feel more the spongy bone. And they call that spongy because it looks like a sponge if you cut through it. I hope you can see that a little bit on the camera, okay? Then we go to our next terms that we have to explain. Um, Inside this bone, okay, we have a medullary channel. It's difficult to see because it's cooked, but you can see it a little bit that there is a line running through here, okay? That's what we call the medullary channel. And then we have this stuff on the inside here. What's this, guys? What I'm getting out now? What is this?
Medial.
Medule, yeah, it's bone marrow. Very good. Bone marrow, our bones are in fact hollow tubes, okay? They're filled with bone marrow. And this bone marrow, there's two types of it. There is yellow bone marrow and there is red bone marrow. And typically in the epiphysis here and here, you have more yellow bone marrow. and in the middle you have more red bone marrow. And the fact is that they have a different function. So if you're a young child, all of your bone marrow is red. Why is it red? Because the function of red bone marrow is to produce red blood cells, and this is done by certain cells called erythroblasts. Okay, they produce red blood cells, and this happens here in the long part of the bone. Okay, what happens here in the edges here, we have more, the older you get, the more yellow the bone marrow becomes. And why do you think it becomes yellow? You cannot see that anymore because it's cooked, but if you take a raw bone, you can see the difference between red and yellow, but here it's not that clear. I mean, you can see it because it's lighter in the epiphyses than in the center, so that would indicate that this would have been yellow and in the middle is red. But why is it yellow?
The bone gets more hard, or it gets harder.
No, it's because of a certain tissue that's mixed with something. And what is yellow? What is typically yellow in our human body?
Mucus?
No, it's fat.
Grasa
Yeah,
muscular.
greases. In fact, the bones, the older you get, the more yellow bone marrow you get because it becomes replaced with fat. Okay. And why is that? Because if you're an adult, you don't need so much red bone marrow anymore because you don't need to produce so much blood. It's during the growth phase that all of your bones usually have red bone marrow because they have to produce a lot of blood because your body is growing. But when you're at your full size, the part in the middle can produce enough red blood cells to replace the old ones because you're not growing anymore. And that's why you get, in fact, that those spongy bone areas where the yellow bone marrow is becomes more and more fat. Okay. The red bone marrow little by little will be replaced by by yellow bone marrow, and that's because it has fat. Okay. Around the bones, what you can see here, there's like a little layer around it. Okay, you see that here. You know that if you eat chicken, sometimes it becomes loose. It's like a kind of membrane that protects our bone, and this is what we call the periosteum. Okay. Also on the inside of the bone, right here, it's difficult to see in the camera, but in the inside here, there is also a membrane that protects the inside of the bone, and it keeps the bone marrow in its place. And that's called, it's another membrane, a membrane on the inside and on the outside. And this is called, on the outside, we call it periosteum, and on the inside, we call it endosteum. Okay. Also, what we have in the long bone is called the growth plate. Okay, if you look at the long bone and you look like to chicken, I'm turning it around, you see always in a bone like it's you can see it, but it's difficult to see. It's like a kind of disc here, and this disc is in fact what we call the growth plate, because the bones, they grow from the middle and they become longer like that. Okay, so they grow like this, and that happens in the growth plate. So the growth plate is really the place where the bone becomes longer and longer, and this happens through extra mineralization, to duplication of cells, and then the bones, they can get longer and longer. Okay, so that's what we call the growth plate. Okay, inside the bone there is another thing. If you look carefully here on this sample, you can see it a little bit better. You can see like little holes. Can you see that, like perforations and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is what we call Haversian channels and Volkmann channels. Okay. And maybe I can show it also on the lab document. Um, what that does, in fact, is in the bone you have these channels, Haversian channels, Volkmann channels, and that's because our bone is alive. Okay, it's growing, it needs nutrients, it needs everything like just any other organ. And in fact, what the Haversian channel and the Volkmann channel is, these are in fact channels where the blood vessels can run through and also nerve endings can run through, because you know if you break a bone it can be very painful, so your bone is full of nerves as well and they run through these channels. Okay, and that's why you, when you open a bone and you see the bone marrow, you see the spongy stuff, you see that, you see also the bone marrow, but you can also with the naked eye you can detect like little pores, and that's in fact the blood channels, and we call that Haversian channels and Volkmann channels depending on its orientation. Okay, and then inside the bone we have cells. Okay, it's about 30% of the bone, and we have three types of cells. Okay, lining cells that cover the bone, but the three important cells inside the bone, we call them osteoclast, osteoblast, and osteocytes. Okay, and this is very interesting because the osteoclast is the cell that breaks down bone. Okay, we need those cells because old and damaged cells, they have to be replaced, so we have specialized cells that break down bone cells. Okay, we have also osteoblasts, and they make cells of the bone. Okay, because certain bone cells, they have to be produced, and it's the osteoblasts doing that. And then we have also cells that keep maintaining the bone, and we call that the osteocytes. Okay, it's very interesting this, because in fact, when you're a child, and maybe still for you, you're still growing a little bit, but if you're a toddler or you're a child, in fact, what happens is that you have a lot of production of osteoblasts. Okay, the osteoblast produce more cells than the osteoclast destroys, so that's how you grow. But as you become older, in fact, what happened when you become older is that the osteoclast, they will take over. And when they take over, um, there is more destruction of bone than there is formation of bone. Okay. And that's why as you get older, people get shorter. Okay. Maybe when you're 25 years old, you're on your full height. Let's assume that you're a person and you will reach 1 meter 70, let's say. But when you're 80, it could be that you shrink until 1 meter 60. Okay, and that's because your bones, they lose minerals, they become shorter, you lose cartilage in your vertebrates, and you shrink little by little. In fact, did you know, by the way, also that gravity makes you shrink? In fact, according to certain studies, you shrink during the span of a day about 6 to 8 millimeters, but then at night you lay down and you stretch out again. So in fact, it should be true that in the morning you're taller than you are in the evening. Okay, so why am I telling this? Because I think it's very important that in this chapter you understand that our bones need to be kept healthy, and it's a problem because a lot of people, they don't take care of their bones, and especially in women, they suffer a little bit more often than men from osteoarthritis and osteoporosis, and you have discussed those diseases. But in fact, you always have to take care of yourself by having a healthy diet, eating enough minerals so that you keep your bones healthy, because bones, if you have cartilage issues or you have inflammation because of arthritis, you possibly know your grandmother or certain people in your family that might suffer a little bit from pain, especially when it's cold. And that's why it's very important that you always eat healthy and do exercise. Okay, don't do too much alcohol, don't eat too much bad food, because it does affect your bones, and once it starts affecting you, it's often too late already. Exercise, guys, is very important to mention, because exercise, if you do exercise, you're telling to your bones, no, I'm doing exercise, there is stress on my bones, there is stress on my spinal column, please be active, osteoblasts, produce more cells in order to keep my bones strong, because I need them. The opposite happens, and that's the problem of our society today. We're sitting down so often, we don't move anymore. So what happens at a very young age, if you don't move, is that your body is going to think like, hey, why should I produce better bone cells, or why should I keep on mineralizing my bones that well when you're not using me? In fact, the stress on your bones, if you do exercise, is the activating factor of keeping your bones in good health. So just sitting down and not doing anything, it can have a very devastating effect on your bones on the long run. You need to put your bones under healthy stress, which is physical activity, sports, um, these kind of things, in order to keep up the production of bone cells, to keep up the mineralization of your bones. Because if you stop doing that, you start entering the road of osteoporosis and osteoarthritis and inflammation of the bones and so forth and so forward. Okay, so it's very important that you realize this. um, I'm going to share with you a little bit now, because I did my dissection part. I want to share a little bit with you the presentation, which you already have. So you have all the material. That's why it's not really necessary to share the practicum. But if you really would like to have it, of course, I'm very happy to share that with you. But here it's basically all the same things. Okay, so let's have a look at this. What we have here is the epiphysis in the endings, okay, and the diaphysis in the middle, okay. We have the endosteum covering the bone on the inside, the periosteum covering the bone on the outside, okay. We have seen that. And then here you can typically see the difference between spongy bone, which look like a sponge, and then the compact bone here. And why does it look different? It looks different because it's a different organization of the cells and the minerals, okay? And the organization, we call that in the spongy part, trabeculae, and in the compact bone, lacunae, okay? Lacunae, which means half moon, because all is compacted layer over layer, okay? Um, these are the same terms that we just showed in the real bone, which I have right here. If you want to see it one more time, there it is. So there is it. Okay, uh, the red bone marrow here in the middle, on the edges, the yellow bone marrow, the epiphysis, diaphysis, all these kind of things. Okay. Um, this is the same image you have in the practica, okay? And here you can see a little bit the organization of where you have bone cells, and then you have the osteoblast, the clast, and the osteocytes, which are spread out all over the bone in order to produce the cells, bone cells in basically. So these are the producers and the maintainers of the cells. And then we also talked about the Haversian and the Volksmann channels, okay? So this is interesting, like I said as well. What is bone made of? Okay, if we talk about the bone matrix, which is the bone itself, it doesn't include the bone marrow. It's about 30% organic matter. What is organic matter? It's the cells, the collagen, and the blood vessels. Okay, the collagen is the sugar, as you know. We have some collagen in our bone as well. But the big part of our bone, about 67%, is phosphate, calcium, and other minerals that make up our bone, which makes them hard. And that's why sometimes people think like, it's made of almost 70% of inorganic matter, so it's not really alive. But it's not true. It's just those cells are surrounded by calcium and other minerals, because otherwise it would never have the strength what it has. So it's just a tissue like any other tissue. And in fact, it's a really, really important tissue, because it has a big role in our immune system, in production of red blood cells. And there's also the mother cells, stem cells. So it has a very important part as well in our immune system and the production of white blood cells. And that stem cells, they are in our bones. They can be isolated from your bone marrow. And stem cells are very important, because the more stem cells you have, the longer you usually will live. And stem cells are in fact cells that can still transform in any type of cell. Okay, so here we have our bone cells that we talked about. The blasts are building. I remember always like this. Osteoblast starts with B, so it builds. Osteoclast, it breaks down, okay? And osteocytes maintain it. Here a little bit about the difference between compact and spongy bone. We have seen that. And here, what's the difference in the organization, okay? The organization you know, right? That the compact bone, we call that lacunae, and the spongy bone intrabiculae, okay? Which is just the organization of the cells and the inorganic material. Bone marrow, also, I told you, yellow is because it has more fat, okay? The red bone marrow, very important because this is the area where red blood cells are produced. And then if we look at the bone, like here in the knee, for instance, bone, here you have the cartilage. You could also see that here on the chicken bone, see? You could typically see that here on this part. It's not moving anymore. Let's see. No. A ver. Yeah, it is moving. So here you could see. It's not. Yeah, there's a little bit delay, it seems, on the camera. Anyway, the cartilage was this part right here, okay? And also the cartilage is important, like you can see on the presentation, because it's very important in joining bones together, okay? So that's why we have cartilage between the two things. And in fact, if this cartilage get damaged, then in fact arthritis problems start. In fact, it's our own immune system that starts inflamming this cartilage, and it eats it away, and it can become very painful when there is so little left that bone touches bone, because it has nerve endings, and it can be very painful. What we have between bones is this white bands, and this is what we call ligaments. You have to know the difference. What is the difference between a ligament and a tendon? So a ligament connects bone to bone, is the white thing you see here, while a tendon connects the muscle to the bone. Okay, that's basically what you see here. All those terms, you have seen it already in previous classes, but tendon and ligament is different. Tendon is muscle to bone, ligament is between bones. So it's what breaks the more often in sports, guys? Is it the ligaments or the tendons?
Ligaments. Yes, ligaments.
Yeah, usually it's the ligaments because they're shorter and they're a little bit less flexible. So I know a friend of mine who played a lot of football. He had the ligament broken of the knee between the knee cap, which we call patella. This ligament is broken, and he got like a new ligament installed. And the tendon can also break, of course, but the muscle is more flexible, so it's more elastic, let's say. So it can break, definitely, but usually it's the ligaments that are not that elastic as the tendons, because they're bone to bone, and the muscle itself is flexible, as you know, elastic. It's more often that those ligaments get damaged. And it's a big problem, guys. If you break your ligaments, you're good for 6 months of problems at least, because it takes a long time to heal these kind of things. Okay. So make sure you know the difference between arthritis and porosis. Arthritis is all about the cartilage, okay? And porosis is basically the demineralization of the bone, which has to do with vitamin D. Vitamin D is just a factor involved in this, and we have seen that in the documentary last week, that vitamin D is necessary to mineralize your bones. So if I know that certain students, they don't come out very often. If you don't see any sunshine or you don't have a balanced diet, then you have to think about taking some vitamin D supplements in order to have strong bones. Okay. Also valid for us, but usually if you come outside, you have some sunshine, you eat healthy, you eat now and then some fish, not too much meat. Also milk has some vitamin D in it, and you should be fine, in fact. Any questions so far? No? Okay.
No.
Okay, then that's it a little bit what I wanted to tell for today. Uh, we see each other tomorrow in the guest speaker. Okay, this presentation is online. Check it please, so that you can review it for our module quiz of Friday. Yeah, that's it. We see each other tomorrow, but you can expect still a message in WhatsApp from me with details and a reminder that tomorrow we will connect at 11. I apologize because normally I let you know at least 1 week in advance, but our guest speaker, a very busy person, and she could only confirm me yesterday with certainty. So that's why I'm a little bit late. However, I told you last week already a little bit. Okay. Anyway, you have your free time tomorrow. You have your free time at 12 instead at 11, and tomorrow we will all join in the same Zoom session. I think we will be more or less 100 people, 80 people, between 80 and 100, I guess, because it's the 2 years together. So then you can also say hello to your friends from fourth semester, which possibly some of them you know. Okay, so take care, and we see each other tomorrow. Okay.
Teacher, are we going to make the integumentary system review activity for today?
Yeah, I check on Canvas. I put all the dates there. Yeah, make sure that you hand them in. If you have an exam tomorrow about something.
Not tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, try to finish everything, check on Canvas. Canvas is really nice. I think it's hard to forget something because when you open it, you always get the list like you have to do this, and this, okay? And you know that I'm also not a horrible person in these kind of things. If there's really an issue and you need one more day or something, then it's okay. But usually I try to respect the dates a little bit because I tell you way in advance. But if you have a certain personal issue, you know you can always talk to me, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you.
We see each other tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.